necessary to have an infrastructure fund component in the fund instead of using the budget to allocate those resources. And at the same time, the new budget shows that you have a decrease in current expenditures planned, as well as an increase in the aggregate amount. Of course, that's due to various line items. I'd like to know what is the biggest contributor, whether it's capital expenditures or security spending, and how do you think, how flexible can you be? So you're allowing yourself more flexibility by decreasing current expenditures. However, you have budgeted larger amounts for other spending as well. So if you can just help us navigate the makeup of the capital spending in the budget with this dynamic for 2012, as well as the inclusion of the fund. Thank you.
Okay, the first part of your question. Why do we have an infrastructure component, the solid waste fund, instead of mentioning it to the budget? The solid waste fund is complementary to the budget.
Yeah, could we solve this problem? Could you move off to the side? We need the investors to be able to see Dr. Nwankwo.
Come in.
Sir.
Thank you very much. The solid waste fund, in that respect, is actually complementary to the budget. What the solid waste fund has tried to do is to have a prudent, systemized, and transparent way of accounting, not just for the money in general, but for accounting for what has been set out as part of the Xclusivenigeria, the ECA. Now, in respect of the infrastructure component, what he's saying is that what is the best way of using the Xclusivenigeria? And the decision is that a minimum amount, a minimum proportion must be devoted to infrastructure, to critical infrastructure. Not only by the federal government, but the state governments. It's important to realize that of the three components, each government, federal, state, and local government, still has its own, if you like, account book for each of the three components, which means the three are owned by all the governments. So everybody has their own account of how much is their share in each of these components. That's important to note. So when it comes to the infrastructure fund, if you did not devote a specific component by law through the Solid Waste Investment Authority Act to infrastructure, it meant that if you gave a particular government its own share, it could use it for anything. But because we want to introduce overall discipline and appreciating that infrastructure deficit is a major constraint for the whole country, it was then agreed that, look, a minimum proportion must be devoted to infrastructure funding, which means once the Solid Investment Authority experts come into work, the amount in the infrastructure component will be devoted by each group for the solution of infrastructure problems. Would this mean going against the budget? No. Whatever component that has been agreed, for example, if it's agreed that so much of it for infrastructure should go to power infrastructure, then of course it will now be disbursed and implemented through the budget. So that's why I say it's complementary. It's a way of reinvesting a particular amount for a particular purpose, but its implementation will go through the budget. Yes, looking at the budget for this year, the total expenditure, as you know, is about 4.69 trillion naira, and the deficit is about, the revenue expectation is about 3.56, giving a deficit of about 1.13. And I explained the deficit GDP ratio remains about 2.58, which is comfortable. But more importantly, in line with the part of fiscal consolidation I explained we have embarked on in the medium-term expenditure framework, a deliberate attempt is being made to reallocate between capital and recurrent expenditure. Currently, recurrent expenditure is having a disproportionate share. And you see, like, for example, last year, the share of capital expenditure was 24. This year, it has increased to 28. And if you look at the medium-term expenditure framework, there's a deliberate attempt to continue with that reallocation between the capital and the recurrent expenditure, so that by 2015, I think, the recurrent expenditure will be a minimum of 30%. So that's what is happening. So I know your interest is that if we have such infrastructure deficit, why are we devoting so much on a recurrent expenditure? Yes, we appreciate there has been some structural imbalance, and that's part and parcel of the objective of the transformation agenda to restructure this relationship over time to a more acceptable combination. So that is the part. In terms of specific expenditures in the capital budget, of course, a lot is going to power, a lot is going to roads and other infrastructure, but also some substantial amount would be going to security for obvious reasons. As you know, Nigeria has been a relatively peaceful civil country. We have had our problems, but our problems have been local problems that every society, every community experiences. But unfortunately, the global terrorist movement made the wrong choice of trying to use Nigeria as one of their targets. And so that's constraining us to spend quite a little on security so that there is some stability for us to move forward. But the most important point to make in terms of capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure,